Welcome! Today, we're embarking on a journey to a place that truly captivates the heart and soul, Taiwan. Imagine an island where ancient traditions gracefully dance with cutting-edge innovation, where bustling night markets pulse with vibrant energy, and serene mountain landscapes offer moments of profound peace. Taiwan is a tapestry woven with incredible diversity, from the warm smiles of its people to the breathtaking beauty of its natural wonders. It's a place where you can savor the most exquisite culinary delights, explore historic temples steeped in centuries of history, and hike through lush national parks that will leave you speechless. This island nation offers an experience that is both exhilarating and deeply enriching, a testament to its resilience, its creativity, and its unwavering spirit. We're so excited to share a glimpse of what makes Taiwan so special.
Taiwan, to I officially the Republic of China ROC. I is a country 27 in East Asia. L. The main island of Taiwan, also known as Formosa, lies between the East and South China Seas in the northwestern Pacific Ocean, with the People's Republic of China (PRC) to the northwest, Japan to the northeast, and the Philippines to the south. It has an area of 35,808 square kilometers, 13,826 square miles, with mountain ranges dominating the eastern two-thirds and plains in the western third, where its highly urbanized population is concentrated. The combined territories under ROC control consist of 168 islands in total covering 36,193 square kilometers, 13,974 square miles. 1739, the largest metropolitan area is formed by Taipei the capital, New Taipei City, and Keelung. With around 23.9 million inhabitants, Taiwan is among the most densely populated countries. Taiwan has been settled for at least 25,000 years. Ancestors of Taiwanese indigenous peoples settled the island around 6,000 years ago. In the 17th century, large-scale Han Chinese immigration began under Dutch colonial rule and continued under the Kingdom of Tongan, the first predominantly Han Chinese state in Taiwanese history. The island was annexed in 1683 by the Qing dynasty and ceded to the Empire of Japan in 1895. The Republic of China, which had overthrown the Qing in 1912 under the leadership of Sun Yat-sen, assumed control following the surrender of Japan in World War II. But with the loss of mainland China to the communists in the Chinese Civil War, the government moved to Taiwan in 1949 under the Kuomintang KMT. From the early 1960s, Taiwan saw rapid economic growth and industrialization known as the Taiwan Miracle. 40. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, the ROC transitioned from a one-party state under martial law to a multi-party democracy, with democratically elected presidents beginning in 1996. Taiwan's export-oriented economy is the 21st largest in the world by nominal GDP and the 20th largest by PPP measures, with a focus on steel, machinery, electronics, and chemicals manufacturing. Taiwan is a developed country. 4142. It is ranked highly in terms of civil liberties, 43 healthcare, 44 and human development. Age 20 to the political and international status of Taiwan is contentious. Despite being a founding member, the ROC no longer represents China as a member of the United Nations after UN members voted in 1971 to recognize the PRC instead. The ROC maintained its claim to be the sole legitimate representative of China and its territory until 1991, when it ceased to regard the Chinese Communist Party as a rebellious group and acknowledged its control over mainland China. Taiwan is claimed by the PRC, which refuses to establish diplomatic relations with countries that recognize the ROC. Taiwan maintains official diplomatic relations with 11 out of 193 UN member states and the Holy See. Many others maintain unofficial diplomatic ties through representative offices and institutions that function as de facto embassies and consulates. International organizations in which the PRC participates either refuse to grant membership to Taiwan or allow it to participate on a non-state basis. Domestically, the major political contention is between the Pan-Blue Coalition, which favors eventual Chinese unification under the ROC and promoting a pan-Chinese identity, contrasted with the Pan-Green Coalition, which favors eventual Taiwanese independence and promoting a Taiwanese identity. In the 21st century, both sides have moderated their positions to broaden their appeal. 4950. In his Dao Yizhi Lu 1349, Wang Dayuan used Liuqiu as a name for the island, or the part of it closest to Penghu. 51 elsewhere, the name was used for the Ryukyu Islands in general, or Okinawa specifically. The name Ryukyu is the Japanese form of Likyu. The name also appears in the Book of Sui 636 and other early works, but scholars cannot agree on whether these references are to the Ryukyus, Taiwan, or even Luzon. 50 to the name Formosa dates from 1542, when Portuguese sailors noted it on their maps as Ilha Formosa, Portuguese for beautiful island. 5354. The name Formosa eventually replaced all others in European literature. 55, and remained in common use among English speakers into the 20th century. 56. In 1603, a Chinese expedition fleet anchored at a place in Taiwan called Daiwan, a variant of Taiwan. 57. 58. 59. In the early 17th century, the Dutch East India Company established a commercial post at Fort Zeelandia, modern-day Amping, on a coastal sandbar called Taiwan. 60. After their ethnonym for a nearby Taiwanese Aboriginal tribe, possibly Taiwan people. 61. Use of the current Chinese name became official as early as 1680 for during the Qing dynasty, with the establishment of Taiwan Prefecture, centered in modern-day Tainan. Through its rapid development, the entire Taiwanese mainland eventually became known as Taiwan. 60 to 63. 60 for 65 names of the country and jurisdictions. Also, Chinese Taipei, names of China, and China and the United Nations. The official name of the country in English is the Republic of China. Shortly after the ROC's establishment in 1912, while it was still located on the Chinese mainland, the government used the short form China Zhongguo to refer to itself, derived from Zheng, central or middle, and Guo state, nation-state, and the term developed under the Zhou dynasty in reference to its royal domain, and was then applied to the area around Luoyi, present-day Luoyang, during the Eastern Zhou, and later to China's central plain, before being used as an occasional synonym for the state during the Qing era. 67. The name of the republic had stemmed from the party manifesto of the Tongming-Hui in 1905, which says the four goals of the Chinese Revolution was to expel the Manchu rulers, to revive Chunhua, to establish a republic, and to distribute land equally among the people. 3. Revolutionary leader Sun Yat-sen proposed the name Chunhua Minkuo as the assumed name of the new country when the revolution succeeded. During the 1950s and 1960s, after the ROC government had withdrawn to Taiwan, it was commonly referred to as Nationalist China or Free China to differentiate it from Communist China or Red Ch. INA. 69. Over subsequent decades, the Republic of China has become commonly known as Taiwan, after the main island. To avoid confusion, the ROC government in Taiwan began to put Taiwan next to its official name in 2005. 70. In ROC government publications, the name is written as Republic of China Taiwan, Republic of China, Taiwan, or sometimes Taiwan ROC. 71. 72. 73. Taiwan area was defined to mean the island of Taiwan, Penghu, Kinmen, Matsu, and other territory under ROC's effective control. 74. In contrast to mainland area, which refers to ROC territory outside the Taiwan area and under Chinese Communist control. 75. The Republic of China participates in most international forums and organizations under the name Chinese Taipei as a compromise with the People's Republic of China PRC. For instance, it is the name under which it has participated in the Olympic Games as well as the APEC. 76. Taiwan authorities is sometimes used by the PRC to refer to the government in Taiwan. 77. Taiwan was joined to the Asian mainland in the late Pleistocene until sea levels rose about 10,000 years ago. 78. Human remains and Paleolithic artifacts dated 20,000 to 30,000 years ago have been found. 79. 8. Zero study of the human remains suggested they were Australopapuan peoples similar to Negrito populations in the Philippines. 81. Paleolithic Taiwanese likely settled the Ryukyu Islands 30,000 years ago. 82. Slash and burn agriculture practices started at least 11,000 years ago. 83. Stone tools of the Changban culture have been found in Taitung and Eluambi. Archaeological remains suggest they were initially hunter-gatherers that slowly shifted to intensive fishing. 80 for 85. The distinct Wangxing culture, found in Miaoli County, were initially gatherers who shifted to hunting. 86. Around 6,000 years ago, Taiwan was settled by farmers of the Dapankang culture, most likely from what is now southeast China. 87. These cultures are the ancestors of modern Taiwanese indigenous peoples and the originators of the Austronesian language family. 88-89. Trade with the Philippines persisted from the early 2nd millennium BCE, including the use of Taiwanese jade in the Philippine jade culture. 1991. The Dapankang culture was succeeded by a variety of cultures throughout the island, including the Tahu and Yingpu. The Yuanshan were characterized by rice harvesting. Iron appeared in such cultures as the Niaosung culture, influenced by trade with China and maritime Southeast Asia. 90-93. The Plains indigenous peoples mainly lived in permanent walled villages with a lifestyle based on agriculture, fishing, and hunting. 94. They had traditionally matriarchal societies. The Penghu Islands were inhabited by Han Chinese fishermen by 1171, and in 1225 Penghu was attached to Jinjiang. 95, 96, 97, 98. The Yuan dynasty officially incorporated Penghu under the jurisdiction of Tong'an County in 1281. 98. Penghu was evacuated in the 15th century by the Ming dynasty as part of their maritime ban, which lasted until the late 16th century. 99. In 1349, Wang Dayuan provided the first written account of a visit to Taiwan. 100-101. By the 1590s, a small number of Chinese from Fujian had started cultivating land in southwestern Taiwan. 100 to some 1,500 to 2,000 Chinese lived or stayed temporarily on the southern coast of Taiwan, mostly for seasonal fishing, but also subsistence farming and trading. By the early 17th century, 103, 101. In 1603, Chen De visited Taiwan on an anti-Wokou expedition and recorded an account of the Taiwanese indigenous people. 58. In 1591, Japan sent envoys to deliver a letter requesting tribute relations with Taiwan. They found no leader to deliver the letter to and returned home. In 1609, a Japanese expedition was sent to survey Taiwan. After being attacked by the indigenous people, they took some prisoners and returned home. In 1616, a Japanese fleet of 13 ships were sent to Taiwan. Due to a storm, only one ship made it there and is presumed to have returned to Japan. 100 for 105.
In 1624, the Dutch East India Company VOC established Fort Zeelandia on the coastal islet of Taiwan in modern Tainan. 106-65. The lowland areas were occupied by 11 indigenous chiefdoms, some of which fell under Dutch control, including the Kingdom of Midig. 65-107. When the Dutch arrived, southwestern Taiwan was already frequented by a mostly transient Chinese population numbering close to 1,500. 103. The VOC encouraged Chinese farmers to immigrate and work the lands under Dutch control, and by the 1660s, some 30,000 to 50,000 Chinese were living on the island. 108 109 Most of the farmers cultivated rice for local consumption and sugar for export, while some immigrants engaged in deer hunting for export. 110 111 112 In 1626, the Spanish Empire occupied northern Taiwan as a trading base, first at Keelung and in 1628 building Fort Santo Domingo at Tamsui. 113 114 This colony lasted until 1642, when the last Spanish fortress fell to Dutch forces. 115 The Dutch then marched south, subduing hundreds of villages in the western plains. 115 Photo of an elaborate Chinese temple with hedges in front. Tainan Confucian Temple built in 1665 during the Kingdom of Tanging period. Following the fall of the Ming dynasty in Beijing in 1644, Koxinga Jing Qinggong pledged allegiance to the Yangli Emperor and attacked the Qing dynasty along the southeastern coast of China. 116 In 1661, under increasing Qing pressure, he moved his forces from his base in Xiamen to Taiwan, expelling the Dutch the following year. The Dutch retook the northern fortress at Keelung in 1664, but left the island in 1668 in the face of indigenous resistance. 117 118 The Zheng regime, known as the Kingdom of Tanging, proclaimed its loyalty to the overthrown Ming, but ruled independently. 119 120 121 122 However, Zheng Jing's return to China to participate in the revolt of the three feudatories paved the way for the Qing invasion and occupation of Taiwan in 1683. 123 124 Qing rule 1683 to 1895. Main article: Taiwan under Qing rule. Chikan Tower, originally built as Fort Provincia by the Dutch, was rebuilt under Qing rule. Following the defeat of Koxinga's grandson by an armada led by Admiral Shai Lang in 1683, the Qing dynasty formally annexed Taiwan in May 1684, making it a prefecture of Fujian province while retaining its administrative seat, now Tainan, under Koxinga as the capital. 125 126 127 The Qing government generally tried to restrict migration to Taiwan throughout the duration of its administration because it believed that Taiwan could not sustain too large a population without leading to conflict. After the defeat of the Kingdom of Tanging, most of its population in Taiwan was sent back to the mainland, leaving the official population count at only 50,000, including 10,000 troops. Despite official restrictions, officials in Taiwan solicited settlers from the mainland, causing tens of thousands of annual arrivals by 1711. A permit system was officially recorded in 1712, but it likely existed as early as 1684. Its restrictions included only allowing those to enter who had property on the mainland, family in Taiwan, and who were not accompanied by wives or children. Many of the male migrants married local indigenous women. Over the 18th century, restrictions were relaxed. In 1732, families were allowed to move to Taiwan. 128 129 By 1811, there were more than 2 million Han settlers in Taiwan, and profitable sugar and rice production industries provided exports to the mainland. 130 131 132 In 1875, restrictions on entering Taiwan were repealed. 133 Taiwanese indigenous peoples hunting deer. 1746 3 counties nominally covered the entire Western Plains, but actual control was restricted to a smaller area. A government permit was required for settlers to go beyond the Dajia River. Qing administration expanded across the Western Plains area over the 18th century due to continued illegal crossings and settlement. 134 The Taiwanese indigenous peoples were categorized by the Qing administration into acculturated aborigines who had adopted Han culture and non-acculturated aborigines who had not. The Qing did little to administer or subjugate them. When Taiwan was annexed, there were 46 aboriginal villages under its control, likely inherited from the Kingdom of Tanging. During the early Qianlong period, there were 93 acculturated villages and 61 non-acculturated villages that paid taxes. In response to the Jiyigui settler rebellion in 1722, separation of Aboriginals and settlers became official policy via 54 stele used to mark the frontier boundary. The markings were changed 4 times over the latter half of the 18th century due to continued settler encroachment. 2 Aboriginal affairs sub-prefects, one for the north and one for the south, were appointed in 1766, 135. During the 200 years of Qing rule in Taiwan, the Plains indigenous peoples rarely rebelled against the government and the mountain indigenous peoples were left to their own devices until the last 20 years of Qing rule. Most of the more than 100 rebellions during the Qing period, such as the Ling Shuiwen Rebellion, were caused by Han settlers, 136-137. Their frequency was evoked by the common saying every 3 years an uprising, every 5 years a rebellion, primarily in reference to the period between 1820 and 1850, 138, 139, 140. Many officials stationed in Taiwan called for an active colonization policy over the 19th century. In 1788, Taiwan Prefect Yang Tingli supported the efforts of a settler named Wu Sha to claim land held by the Kavalan people. In 1797, Wu Sha was able to recruit settlers with financial support from the local government but was unable to officially register the land. In the early 1800s, local officials convinced the emperor to officially incorporate the area by playing up the issue of piracy if the land was left alone. 141. In 1814, some settlers attempted to colonize central Taiwan by fabricating rights to lease Aboriginal land. They were evicted by government troops 2 years later. Local officials continued to advocate for the colonization of the area but were ignored. 142. Taipei North Gate, constructed in 1884, was part of the walls of Taipei. The Qing took on a more active colonization policy after 1874 when Japan invaded indigenous territory in southern Taiwan and the Qing government was forced to pay an indemnity for them to leave. 143. The administration of Taiwan was expanded with new prefectures, sub-prefectures, and counties. Mountain roads were constructed to make inner Taiwan more accessible. Restrictions on entering Taiwan were ended in 1875 and agencies for recruiting settlers were established on the mainland, but efforts to promote settlement ended soon after. 144. In 1884. Keelung in northern Taiwan was occupied during the Sino-French War, but the French forces failed to advance any further inland while their victory at Penghu in 1885 resulted in disease and retreat soon afterward as the war ended. Colonization efforts were renewed under Liu Mingchuan. In 1887, Taiwan's status was upgraded to a province. Taipei became the permanent capital in 1893. Liu's efforts to increase revenues on Taiwan's produce were hampered by foreign pressure not to increase levies. A land reform was implemented. Following the Qing defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War 1894-1895, Taiwan, its associated islands, and the Penghu archipelago were ceded to Japan by the Treaty of Shimonoseki. 153 inhabitants wishing to remain Qing subjects had to move to mainland China within a 2-year grace period, which few saw as feasible. 154 estimates say around 4,000 to 6,000 departed before the expiration of the grace period, and 200,000 to 300,000 followed during the subsequent disorder. 155, 131, 156. On the 25th of May 1895, a group approaching high officials proclaimed the Republic of Formosa to resist impending Japanese rule. Japanese forces entered the capital at Tainan and quelled this resistance on the 21st of October 1895. 157, about 6,000 inhabitants died in the initial fighting and some 14,000 died in the first year of Japanese rule. Another 12,000 bandit rebels were killed from 1898 to 1902, 158, 159, 160. Subsequent rebellions against the Japanese, the Baipo Uprising of 1907, the Topani Incident of 1915, and the Musha Incident of 1930 were unsuccessful but demonstrated opposition to Japanese rule. A sugarcane mill and its railways in Tainan in the 1930s. The colonial period was instrumental to the industrialization of the island, with its expansion of railways and other transport networks, the building of an extensive sanitation system, the establishment of a formal education system, and an end to the practice of headhunting. 162. The resources of Taiwan were used to aid the development of Japan. The production of cash crops such as sugar greatly increased, and large areas were therefore diverted from the production of rice. 163. By 1939, Taiwan was the seventh greatest sugar producer in the world. 164. The Han and indigenous populations were classified as second and third-class citizens, and many prestigious government and business positions were closed to them. 165. After suppressing Han guerrillas in the first decade of their rule, Japanese authorities engaged in bloody campaigns against the indigenous people residing in mountainous regions, culminating in the Musha Incident of 1930. 166 intellectuals and laborers who participated in left-wing movements were also arrested and massacred. For example, Chiang Wei-shui and Masanesu Watanabe. 167. Around 1935, the Japanese began an island-wide assimilation project. 168 Chinese language newspapers and curriculums were abolished. Taiwanese music and theater were outlawed. A national Shinto religion was promoted in parallel with the suppression of traditional Taiwanese beliefs. Starting from 1940, families were also required to adopt Japanese surnames, although only 2% had done so by 1943. 168. By 1938, 309,000 Japanese were residing in Taiwan. 169. During the Second World War, the island was developed into a naval and air base, while its agriculture, industry, and commerce suffered. 171 air attacks and the subsequent invasion of the Philippines were launched from Taiwan. The Imperial Japanese Navy operated heavily from Taiwanese ports, and its think tank South Strike Group was based at Taihoku Imperial University. Military bases and industrial centers, such as Kaohsiung and Keelung, became targets of heavy Allied bombings, which destroyed many of the factories, dams, and transport facilities built by the Japanese. 170 to 171. In October 1944, the Formosa air battle was fought between American carriers and Japanese forces in Taiwan. Over 200,000 of Taiwanese served in the Japanese military, with over 30,000 casualties. 173 over 2,000 women, euphemistically called comfort women, were forced into sexual slavery for Imperial Japanese troops. 174. After Japan's surrender, most Japanese residents were expelled. 175. Republic of China 1945 present. Main articles: Republic of China 1912 to 1949 and History of Taiwan 1945 present. See also History of the Republic of China and Chinese Civil War. General Chen Yu write accepting the receipt of General Order No. 1 from Rikichi on the left, the last Japanese Governor General of Taiwan, in Taipei City Hall. While Taiwan was under Japanese rule, the Republic of China was founded on mainland China on the 1st of January 1912 following the Shanghai Revolution of 1911. 176 central authority waxed and waned in response to warlordism 1915-8. Japanese invasion 1937-45 and the Chinese Civil War 1927-49. With central authority strongest during the Nanjing decade 1927-37, when most of China came under the control of the Kuomintang KMT, 177 during World War II. The 1943 Cairo Declaration specified that Formosa and the Pescadores be returned by Japan to the ROC. 178-179. The terms were later repeated in the 1945 Potsdam Declaration 180 that Japan agreed to carry out in its instrument of surrender. 181-182. On the 25th of October 1945, Japan surrendered Taiwan to the ROC, and in the Treaty of San Francisco, Japan formally renounced their claims to the islands, though without specifying to whom they were surrendered. 183 180 for 185 186p. In the same year, Japan and the ROC signed a peace treaty, 187. While initially enthusiastic about the return of Chinese administration and the three principles of the people, Formosans grew increasingly dissatisfied about being excluded from higher positions, the postponement of local elections even after the enactment of a constitution on the mainland, the smuggling of valuables off the island, the expropriation of businesses into government-operated monopolies, and the hyperinflation of 1945, 1949, 188, 189, 190, 191. The shooting of a civilian on the 28th of February 1947 triggered island-wide unrest, which was suppressed with military force in what is now called the February 28th incident. 190 to 193 mainstream estimates of the number killed range from 18,000 to 30,000. 190 for 195. Chen was later replaced by Wei Daoming, who made an effort to undo previous mismanagement by reappointing a good proportion of islanders and reprivatizing businesses. 197. The nationalists retreat to Taipei. After the end of World War II, the Chinese Civil War resumed. A series of Chinese communist offensives in 1949 led to the capture of its capital Nanjing on the 23rd of April and the subsequent defeat of the nationalists on the mainland. The communists founded the People's Republic of China on the 1st of October, 198. On the 7th of December 1949, Chiang Kai-shek evacuated his nationalist government to Taiwan and made Taipei the temporary capital of the ROC. 199 some 2 million people, mainly soldiers, members of the ruling Kuomintang and intellectual and business elites, were evacuated to Taiwan, adding to the earlier population of approximately 6 million. These people and their descendants became known in Taiwan as Weishengrun. The ROC government took to Taipei many national treasures and much of China's gold and foreign currency reserves, 200 to 101 to 102. Most of the gold was used to pay soldiers' salaries, 203 with some used to issue the new Taiwan dollar, part of a price stabilization program to slow inflation in Taiwan, 200 for 205. After losing control of mainland China in 1949, the ROC retained control of Taiwan and Penghu, Taiwan. ROC parts of Fujian, ROC specifically Kinmen, Wukio now part of Kinmen and the Matsu Islands, and to major islands in the South China Sea. The ROC also briefly retained control of the entirety of Hainan, parts of Zhejiang, Zhejiang, specifically the Dakhan Islands and the Yijiangshan Islands and portions of Tibet, Qinghai, Xinjiang, and Yunnan. The Communists captured Hainan in 1950, captured the Dakhan Islands and the Yijiangshan Islands during the First Taiwan Strait crisis in 1955 and defeated the ROC revolts in northwest China in 1958. ROC forces entered Burma and Thailand in the 1950s and were defeated by communists in 1961. Since losing control of mainland China, the Kuomintang continued to claim sovereignty over all of China, which it defined to include mainland China including Tibet, Taiwan including Penghu, Outer Mongolia, and other minor territories. Martial law, declared on Taiwan in May 1949, 206 continued to be in effect until 1987, 206-207 and was used to suppress political opposition. During the White Terror, as the period is known, 140,000 people were imprisoned or executed for being perceived as anti-KMT or pro-communist. 208 many citizens were arrested, tortured, imprisoned, or executed for their real or perceived link to the Chinese Communist Party. Since these people were mainly from the intellectual and social elite, an entire generation of political and social leaders was destroyed. Following the eruption of the Korean War, U.S. President Harry S. Truman dispatched the United States 7th Fleet into the Taiwan Strait to prevent hostilities between the ROC and the PRC. 209. The United States also passed the Sino-American Mutual Defense Treaty and the Formosa Resolution of 1955, granting substantial foreign aid to the KMT regime between 1951 and 1965. 210. The U.S. foreign aid stabilized prices in Taiwan by 1952. 211. The KMT government instituted many laws and land reforms that it had never effectively enacted on mainland China. 212. Economic development was encouraged by American aid and programs such as the Joint Commission on Rural Reconstruction, which turned the agricultural sector into the basis for later growth. Under the combined stimulus of the land reform and the agricultural development programs, agricultural production increased at an average annual rate of 4% from 1950 to 1959. 213. The government also implemented a policy of import substitution industrialization, attempting to produce imported goods domestically. 214. The policy promoted the development of textile, food, and other labor-intensive industries. 215. As the Chinese Civil War continued, the government built up military fortifications throughout Taiwan. Veterans built the Central Cross Island Highway through the Taroko Gorge in the 1950s. During the Second Taiwan Strait Crisis in 1958, Nike Hercules missiles were added to the formation of missile batteries throughout the island. 216-217. With Chiang Kai-shek, U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower waved to crowds during his visit to Taipei in June 1960. During the 1960s and 1970s, the ROC maintained an authoritarian, single-party government under the Kuomintang's Deng Guo system while its economy became industrialized and technology-oriented. 218. This rapid economic growth, known as the Taiwan Miracle, occurred following a strategy of prioritizing agriculture, light industries, and heavy industries. In that order, 219. Export-oriented industrialization was achieved by tax rebate for exports, removal of import restriction, moving from multiple exchange rate to single exchange rate system, and depreciation of the new Taiwan dollar. 220. Infrastructure projects such as the Sun Yat-sen Freeway, Taoyuan International Airport, Taiking Harbor, and Jincheng Nuclear Power Plant were launched, while the rise of steel, petrochemical, and shipbuilding industries in southern Taiwan saw the transformation of Kaohsiung into a special municipality on par with Taipei. 221. In the 1970s, Taiwan became the second fastest growing economy in Asia. 222. Real growth in GDP averaged over 10%. 223. In 1978, the combination of tax incentives and a cheap, well-trained labor force attracted investments of over $1.9 billion from overseas Chinese, the United States, and Japan. 224. By 1980, foreign trade reached $39 billion per year and generated a surplus of $46.5 million. 219. Along with Hong Kong, Singapore, and South Korea, Taiwan became known as one of the four Asian tigers. Because of the Cold War, most Western nations and the United Nations regarded the ROC as the sole legitimate government of China until the 1970s. Eventually, especially after Taiwan's expulsion from the United Nations, most nations switched diplomatic recognition to the PRC. Until the 1970s, the ROC government was regarded by Western critics as undemocratic for upholding martial law, severely repressing any political opposition, and controlling the media. The KMT did not allow the creation of new parties and competitive democratic elections did not exist. 225, 226, 227, 228, 229. From the late 1970s to the 1990s, Taiwan underwent political and social reforms that transformed it into a democracy. 230-231 Chiang Ching-kwai, Chiang Kai-shek's son, served as premier from 1972 and rose to the presidency in He sought to move more authority to Bensheng-ren residents of Taiwan before Japan's surrender and their descendants. 230 to pro-democracy activist Tang Wai emerged as the opposition. In 1979, the Kaohsiung incident took place in Kaohsiung on Human Rights Day. Although the protest was rapidly crushed by the authorities, it is considered as the main event that united Taiwan's opposition. 233. In 1984, Chiang Ching-kuo selected Lee Teng-hui as his vice president. After the Democratic Progressive Party DPP was illegally founded as the first opposition party in Taiwan to counter the KMT in 1986, Chiang announced that he would allow the formation of new parties, 234. On the 15th of July 1987, Chiang lifted martial law on the main island of Taiwan, 235-236. Transition to democracy, see also, Politics of the Republic of China. In 1988, Lee Teng-hui became the first president of the Republic of China born in Taiwan and was the first to be directly elected in 1996. After Chiang Ching-kuo's death in 1988, Lee Teng-hui became the first president of the ROC born in Taiwan. 237 Lee's administration oversaw a period of democratization in which the temporary provisions against the communist rebellion were abolished and the additional articles of the Constitution were introduced. 238-239 congressional representation was allocated to only the Taiwan area. 240 and Taiwan underwent a process of localization in which Taiwanese culture and history were promoted over a pan-China viewpoint. 241 while assimilationist policies were replaced with support for multiculturalism. 242. In 1996, Lee was re-elected in the first direct presidential election. 243 during Lee's administration. Both he and his party were involved in corruption controversies that came to be known as black gold politics. 244, 245, 246. Chen Shui-bian of the DPP was elected as the first non-KMT president in 2000. 247. However, Chen lacked legislative majority. The opposition KMT developed the Panbu coalition with other parties, mustering a slim majority over the DPP-led Pan-Green coalition. 248 polarized politics emerged in Taiwan with the Pan-Blue preference for eventual Chinese unification, while the Pan-Green prefers Taiwanese independence. Chen's reference to one country on each side of the Taiwan Strait undercut cross-strait relations in 2002. 249. He pushed for the first national referendum on cross-strait relations, 250-251, and called for an end to the National Unification Council, 252. State-run companies began dropping China references in their names and including Taiwan, 253 in 2008. Referendums asked whether Taiwan should join the UN, 254. This act alienated moderate constituents who supported the status quo, as well as those with cross-strait economic ties. It also created tension with the mainland and disagreements with the United States. 255. Chen's administration was also dogged by public concerns over reduced economic growth, legislative gridlock, and corruption investigations. 256, 257, 255. Students occupied the Legislative Yuan in protest against a controversial trade agreement with China in March 2014. The KMT's nominee Ma Ying-jeou won the 2008 presidential election on a platform of increased economic growth and better ties with the PRC under a policy of mutual non-denial. 254. Under Ma, Taiwan and China opened up direct flights and cargo shipments. 258. The PRC government even made the atypical decision to not demand that Taiwan be barred from the annual World Health Assembly. 259. Ma also made an official apology for the White Terror. 260-261. However, closer economic ties with China raised concerns about its political consequences. 260-263. In 2014, university students occupied the Legislative Yuan and prevented the ratification of the Cross-Strait Service Trade Agreement in what became known as the Sunflower Student Movement. The movement gave rise to youth-based third parties, such as the New Power Party, and is viewed to have contributed to the DPP's victories in the 2016 presidential and legislative elections. 260 for the latter of which resulted in the first DPP legislative majority in Taiwanese history. 265. In January 2024, William Lei Ching-te of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party won Taiwan's presidential elections. 266. However, no party won a majority in the simultaneous Taiwan's legislative election for the first time since 2004, meaning 51 seats for the Democratic Progressive Party DPP, 52 seats for the Kuomintang KMT, and the Taiwan People's Party TPP secured 8 seats, 267. The land controlled by the ROC consists of 168 islands and with a combined area of 36,193 square kilometers, 13,974 square miles, 1739 I. The main island, known historically as Formosa, makes up 99% of this area. Measuring 35,808 square kilometers, 13,826 square miles, and lying some 180 kilometers, 112 miles across the Taiwan Strait from the southeastern coast of mainland China. The East China Sea lies to its north, the Philippine Sea to its east, the Luzon Strait directly to its south, and the South China Sea to its southwest. Smaller islands include the Penghu Islands in the Taiwan Strait, the Kinmen, Matsu, and Wukyu Islands near the Chinese coast, and some of the South China Sea Islands. The main island is a tilted fault block, characterized by the contrast between the eastern two-thirds, consisting mostly of 5 rugged mountain ranges parallel to the east coast, and the flat to gently rolling plains of the western third, where the majority of Taiwan's population reside. There are several peaks over 3,500 meters, the highest being Yishan at 3,952 meters, 12,966 feet, making Taiwan the world's 4th highest island. The tectonic boundary that formed these ranges is still active, and the island experiences many earthquakes. There are also many active submarine volcanoes in the Taiwan Strait. Taiwan contains 4 terrestrial ecoregions, and non-subtropical evergreen forests, South China Sea Islands, South Taiwan monsoon rainforests, and Taiwan subtropical evergreen forests, 268. The eastern mountains are heavily forested and home to a diverse range of wildlife, while land use in the western and northern lowlands is intensive. The country had a 2019 Forest Landscape Integrity Index mean score of 6.3810, ranking it 76th globally out of 172 countries, 269. Climate, see also, climate change in Taiwan. Köppen Climate Classification of Taiwan. Taiwan lies on the Tropic of Cancer, and its general climate is marine tropical, 14. The northern and central regions are subtropical, whereas the south is tropical and the mountainous regions are temperate, 270. The average rainfall is 2,600 millimeters 100 inches per year for the island proper. The rainy season is concurrent with the onset of the summer East Asian monsoon in May and June, 271. The entire island experiences hot, humid weather from June through September. Typhoons are most common in July, August, and September, 271. During the winter November to March, the northeast experiences steady rain, while the central and southern parts of the island are mostly sunny. Due to climate change, the average temperature in Taiwan has risen 1.4 degrees Celsius to 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 100 years, twice the worldwide temperature rise, 272. The goal of the Taiwanese government is to cut carbon emissions by 20% in 2030 and by 50% in 2050, compared to 2005 levels. Carbon emissions increased by 0.92% between 2005 and 2016, 273. Geology, main article, Geology of Taiwan. Mount Dabajian was selected as one of the 100 peaks of Taiwan. The island of Taiwan lies in a complex tectonic area between the Yangtze Plate to the west and north, the Okinawa Plate on the northeast, and the Philippine Mobile Belt on the east and south. The upper part of the crust on the island is primarily made up of a series of terranes, mostly old island arcs which have been forced together by the collision of the forerunners of the Eurasian Plate and the Philippine Sea Plate. These have been further uplifted as a result of the detachment of a portion of the Eurasian Plate as it was subducted beneath remnants of the Philippine Sea Plate, a process which left the crust under Taiwan more buoyant, 274. The east and south of Taiwan are a complex system of belts formed by, and part of the zone of, active collision between the North Luzon Trough portion of the Luzon Volcanic Arc and South China, where accreted portions of the Luzon Arc and Luzon Forearc form the eastern coastal range and parallel inland longitudinal valley of Taiwan, respectively. 275. The major seismic faults in Taiwan correspond to the various suture zones between the various terrains. These have produced major quakes. On the 21st of September 1999, a 7.3 quake known as the 921 earthquake killed more than 2,400 people. The seismic hazard map for Taiwan by the USGS shows 9/10 of the island at the most hazardous rating, 276. Government and politics. Main articles: Government of the Republic of China and Politics of the Republic of China. See also, Elections in Taiwan, Human Rights in Taiwan, and North-South Divide in Taiwan. The Government of the Republic of China was founded on the 1947 Constitution of the ROC and its three principles of the people, which states that the ROC shall be a democratic republic of the people, to be governed by the people and for the people. 277. It underwent significant revisions in the 1990s, known collectively as the Additional Articles. The government is divided into 5 branches: Yuan, the Executive Yuan Cabinet, the Legislative Yuan Congress or Parliament, the Judicial Yuan, the Control Yuan Audit Agency, and the Examination Yuan Civil Service Examination Agency. Lei Ching-te, President of the Republic of China. The head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces is the president, who is elected by popular vote for a maximum of 2 4-year terms on the same ticket as the vice president. The president appoints the members of the Executive Yuan as their cabinet, including a premier, who is officially the president of the Executive Yuan. Members are responsible for policy and administration. 277. The main legislative body is the unicameral Legislative Yuan with 113 seats. 73 are elected by popular vote from single-member constituencies. 34 are elected based on the proportion of nationwide votes received by participating political parties in a separate party list ballot. And 6 are elected from 2 3-member aboriginal constituencies. Members serve 4-year terms. Originally the Unicameral National Assembly, as a standing constitutional convention and electoral college, held some parliamentary functions. But the National Assembly was abolished in 2005 with the power of constitutional amendments handed over to the Legislative Yuan and all eligible voters of the Republic via referendums. 277-278. Xiu Yongtai, Premier of the Republic of China. The Premier is selected by the President without the need for approval from the legislature, and neither the President nor the Premier wields veto power. 277. Historically, the ROC has been dominated by strongman single-party politics. This legacy has resulted in executive powers currently being concentrated in the office of the President rather than the Premier. 279. The Judicial Yuan is the highest judicial organ. It interprets the Constitution and other laws and decrees, judges administrative suits, and disciplines public functionaries. The President and Vice President of the Judicial Yuan and additional 13 justices form the Constitutional Court, which was established in 1993 to resolve constitutional disputes, regulate the activities of political parties, and accelerate the democratization process. The Constitutional Court was formerly called the Council of Grand Justices. 280. They are nominated and appointed by the President, with the consent of the Legislative Yuan. The highest court, the Supreme Court, consists of a number of civil and criminal divisions, each of which is formed by a presiding judge and 4 associate judges, all appointed for life. The right to a fair public trial is protected by law and respected in practice. There is no trial by jury. However, many cases are presided over by multiple judges. 277. The Control Yuan is a watchdog agency that monitors the actions of the executive. It can be considered a standing commission for administrative inquiry, like the Court of Auditors of the European Union or the Government Accountability Office of the United States. 277. It is also responsible for the National Human Rights Commission. The examination yuan is in charge of validating the qualification of civil servants. It is based on the imperial examination system used in dynastic China. It can be compared to the European Personnel Selection Office of the European Union or the Office of Personnel Management of the United States. 277. It was downsized in 2019, and there have been calls for its abolition. 281-282 Constitution. The Constitution was drafted by the KMT while the ROC still governed the Chinese mainland. 283 political reforms beginning in the late 1970s resulted in the end of martial law in 1987, and Taiwan transformed into a multi-party democracy in the early. The constitutional basis for this transition to democracy was gradually laid in the additional articles of the Constitution. These articles suspended portions of the Constitution designed for the governance of mainland China and replacing them with articles adapted for the governance of and guaranteeing the political rights of residents of the Taiwan area, as defined in the Cross-Strait Act. 284. National boundaries were not explicitly prescribed by the 1947 Constitution, and the Constitutional Court declined to define these boundaries in a 1993 interpretation, viewing the question as a political question to be resolved by the executive and legislative yuans. 285. The 1947 Constitution included articles regarding representatives from former Qing dynasty territories including Tibet and Mongol banners. 286, 287, 288. The ROC recognized Mongolia as an independent country in 1946 after signing the 1945 Sino-Soviet Treaty of Friendship and Alliance. But after retreating to Taiwan in 1949, it reneged to preserve its claim over mainland China. 289. The additional articles of the 1990s did not alter national boundaries, but suspended articles regarding Mongolian and Tibetan representatives. The ROC began to accept the Mongolian passport and removed clauses referring to Outer Mongolia from the act governing relations between the people of the Taiwan area and the mainland area in 2002. 290. In 2012, the Mainland Affairs Council issued a statement clarifying that Outer Mongolia was not part of the ROC's national territory in 1947. 291. The Mongolian and Tibetan Affairs Commission in the Executive Yuan was abolished in 2017. Administrative Divisions. Main article, Administrative Divisions of Taiwan. See also, Administrative Divisions of the Republic of China 1912 to 1949. According to the 1947 Constitution, the territory of the ROC is according to its existing national boundaries. 292. The ROC is, de jure constitutionally, divided into provinces (ZH), special municipalities which are further divided into districts for local administration, and the province-level Tibet area. Each province is subdivided into cities and counties, which are further divided into townships and county-administered cities. Some divisions are indigenous divisions which have different degrees of autonomy to standard ones. In addition, districts, cities, and townships are further divided into villages and neighborhoods. Since its retreat, the ROC has controlled only Taiwan province and some islands of Fujian province, with the provincial governments now streamlined and no longer functional. 293-290 for the ROC also controls the Pratas Islands and Taiping Island in the Spratly Islands, which are part of the disputed South China Sea Islands, and has placed them under the administration of KOCN. 295. With provinces non-functional, Taiwan is in practice divided into 22 subnational divisions, each with a self-governing body led by an elected leader and a legislative body with elected members. Duties of local governments include social services, education, urban planning, public construction, water management, environmental protection, transport, public safety, and more. Taiwan's political scene is divided into two major camps in terms of cross-strait relations, i.e. how Taiwan should relate to China or the PRC. The Pan-Green Coalition, for example, the Democratic Progressive Party leans pro-independence, and the Pan-Blue Coalition, for example, the Kuomintang leans pro-unification. 296 moderates in both camps regard the Republic of China as a sovereign independent state, but the Pan-Green Coalition regard the ROC as synonymous with Taiwan. 297, while moderates in the Pan-Blue Coalition view it as synonymous with China. 298. These positions formed against the backdrop of the PRC's anti-secession law, which threatens the use of non-peaceful means to respond to formal Taiwanese independence. 299. The ROC government has understood this to mean a military invasion of Taiwan. 300. A Democratic Progressive Party event in Taipei, 2012. The Pan-Green Coalition is mainly led by the pro-independence Democratic Progressive Party DPP. They oppose the idea that Taiwan is part of China and seek wide diplomatic recognition and an eventual declaration of formal Taiwan independence. 301. In September 2007, the ruling DPP approved a resolution asserting separate identity from China and called for the enactment of a new constitution for a normal country. It called also for general use of Taiwan as the country's name without abolishing its formal name, the Republic of China. 302. Some members of the DPP, such as former President Chen Shui-bian and President Lai Ching-te, argue that it is unnecessary to proclaim independence because Taiwan is already an independent sovereign country called the Republic of China. 303. For despite being a member of KMT prior to and during his presidency, Li Tenghu also held a similar view and was a supporter of the Taiwanization movement. 305. Taiwan State Building Party TSP and Green Party GPT 306 have adopted a line that aggressive route more than the DPP in order to win over pro-independence voters who are dissatisfied with the DPP's conservative stance. The Pan-Blue Coalition, composed of the pro-unification Kuomintang KMT, People First Party PFP and New Party generally support the spirit of the 1992 consensus, where the KMT claimed that there is one China, but that the ROC and PRC have different interpretations of what China means. They favor eventual unification with China. 307. The mainstream Pan-Blue position is to maintain the status quo, while refusing immediate unification. 308. Former President Ma Ying-jeou defined cross-strait relations as special relations, not one between two Chinas or two states. 310. 312. Ma also noted that unification is unlikely within our lifetimes, as the Taiwanese people oppose the mainland's authoritarian rule. 313. Some Pan-Blue members seek to improve relationships with the PRC, with a focus on improving economic ties. 314. National Identity, main article, Taiwanese people. The current state of Taiwanese identity. See also, Taiwan Independence Movement and Chinese Unification. Roughly 84% of Taiwan's population are descendants of Han Chinese immigrants between 1683 and 1895. Another significant fraction descends from Han Chinese who immigrated from mainland China in the late 1940s and early 1950s. The shared cultural origin as well as hostility between the rival ROC and PRC have resulted in national identity being a contentious issue with political overtones. Since democratic reforms and the lifting of martial law, a distinct Taiwanese identity is often at the heart of political debates. Its acceptance makes the island distinct from mainland China, and therefore may be seen as a step towards forming a consensus for de jure Taiwan independence. 315. The Pan-Green camp supports a predominantly Taiwanese identity, although Chinese may be viewed as cultural heritage, while the Pan-Blue camp supports a predominantly Chinese identity with Taiwanese as a regional, diasporic Chinese identity. 307. The KMT has downplayed this stance in the recent years and now supports a Taiwanese identity as part of a Chinese identity. 316. 317. Public opinion. See also, opinion polling on Taiwanese identity. Results from an identity survey conducted each year from 1992 to 2020 by the Election Study Center, National Tsinghua University. 318. Responses are Taiwanese green, Chinese red, or both Taiwanese and Chinese hatched. No response is shown as gray. Taiwanese identification has increased substantially since the early 1990s, while Chinese identification has fallen to a low level and identification as both has also seen a reduction. In 1992, 17.6% of respondents identified as Taiwanese, 25.5% as Chinese, 46.4% as both, and 10.5% non-response. In June 2021, 63.3% identified as Taiwanese, 2.6% as Chinese, 31.4% as both, and 2.7% non-response. 318. A survey conducted in Taiwan by Global View Survey Research Center in July 2009 showed that 82.8% of respondents consider the ROC and the PRC to separate countries with each developing on its own, but 80.2% think they are members of the Chinese. 319. Domestic public opinion has preferred maintaining the status quo, though pro-independence sentiment has steadily risen since 1994. In June 2021, an annual poll found that 28.2% supported the status quo and postponing a decision, 27.5% supported maintaining the status quo indefinitely. 25.8% supported the status quo with a move toward independence, 5.9% supported the status quo with a move toward unification, 5.7% gave no response, 5.6% supported independence as soon as possible, and 1.5% supported unification as soon as possible. 320. A referendum question in 2018 asked if Taiwan's athletes should compete under Taiwan in the 2020 Summer Olympics, but did not pass. The New York Times attributed the failure to a campaign cautioning that a name change might lead to Taiwan being banned under Chinese pressure. 321. The political and legal statuses of Taiwan are contentious issues. The People's Republic of China (PRC) claims that Taiwan is Chinese territory and that the PRC replaced the ROC government in 1949, becoming the sole legal government of China. 77. The ROC, however, has its own currency, widely accepted passport, postage stamps, internet TLD, armed forces, constitution, and institutions. 322. It has not formally renounced its claim to the mainland, but ROC government publications have increasingly downplayed this historical claim. 323. Until 1928, the foreign policy of Republican China was complicated by a lack of internal unity. Competing centers of power all claimed legitimacy. This situation changed after the defeat of the Peiyang government by the Kuomintang KMT, which led to widespread diplomatic recognition of the Republic of China. 324. After the KMT retreated to Taiwan, most countries, especially those of the Western Bloc, save the United Kingdom, which recognized the PRC in 1950, 325, continued to maintain formal relations with the ROC. But recognition gradually eroded and many countries switched recognition to the People's Republic of China in the 1970s. On the 25th of October 1971, UN Resolution 2758 was adopted by 76 votes to 35 with 17 abstentions, recognizing the PRC as China's sole representative in the United Nations. 326. 327. ROC Embassy in Eswatini. The PRC refuses to have diplomatic relations with any nation that has diplomatic relations with the ROC, and requires all nations with which it has diplomatic relations to make a statement on its claims to Taiwan. 328. 329. As a result, only 11 UN member states and the Holy See maintain official diplomatic relations with the Republic of China. 330. The ROC maintains unofficial relations with other countries via de facto embassies and consulates, mostly called Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Offices (TECRO), with branch offices called Taipei Economic and Cultural Offices (TICO). Both TECRO and TICO are unofficial commercial entities of the ROC in charge of maintaining diplomatic relations, providing consular services, and serving the national interests of the ROC. 331. From 1954 to 1979, the United States was a partner with Taiwan in a mutual defense treaty. The United States remains one of the main supporters of Taiwan and, through the Taiwan Relations Act passed in 1979, has continued selling arms and providing military training to the Republic of China Armed Forces. The PRC considers U.S. involvement disruptive to the stability of the region. 330 to 333. The official position of the United States is that the PRC is expected to use no force or threaten to use force against Taiwan, and the ROC is to exercise prudence in managing all aspects of cross-strait relations. Both are to refrain from performing actions or espousing statements that would unilaterally alter Taiwan's status. 334. While not officially classified as a major non-NATO ally, it has been de facto treated this way by the United States since at least 2003. 335. Taiwan, since 2016 under the Tsai administration's new southbound policy, has pursued closer economic relations with South and Southeast Asian countries, increasing cooperation on investments and people-to-people exchanges despite the region's general lack of official diplomatic ties with Taipei. 336-337. The policy has led to Taiwan receiving an increased number of migrants and students from the region. 338. However, a few scandals of Southeast Asians, particularly Indonesians, experiencing exploitation in scholarship programs 339 and in some labor industries have emerged as setbacks for the policy 340-341 as well as for Indonesia-Taiwan relations. 340 to 343. Relations with the PRC, main article, Cross-Strait Relations. The 2015 Machi meeting was the only meeting between the leaders of both sides of the Taiwan Strait since 1949. On April 30, 1991, President Lee Teng-hui announced the repeal of the temporary provisions against the Communist Rebellion, characterizing the Chinese Communist Party as a political entity that controls the mainland region or the mainland authorities instead, and declaring that we will no longer seek to unify China through force. 344. The Mainland Affairs Council MAC of Taiwan is responsible for relations with the PRC, while the Taiwan Affairs Office DAO of the PRC is responsible for relations with Taiwan. Exchanges are conducted through private organizations both founded in 1991. The Straits Exchange Foundation (SEF) of Taiwan and the Association for Relations Across the Taiwan Straits (ARITS) of the PRC. In November 1992, the ARITS and SEF held a meeting which would later become known as the 1992 Consensus. The SEF announced that both sides agreed that there was only one China, but disagreed on the definition of China, the ROC versus PRC, while the ARITS announced that the two agreed on the one China principle, but did not mention differences regarding its definition made in the SEF statement. 345. In Taiwan, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party has rejected the 1992 Consensus since early 2019. 346. President Lai Ching-te has stated that the ROC and the PRC are not subordinate to each other. 347. The PRC's One China principle states that Taiwan and mainland China are both part of China, and that the PRC is the only legitimate government of China. 348. It seeks to prevent or reduce any formal recognition of the ROC as an independent sovereign state. 349-350, meaning that Taiwan participates in many international forums as a non-state member under names such as Chinese Taipei. The PRC suggested the one country, two systems employed in Hong Kong as a model for peaceful unification with Taiwan. 351-352. While it aims for peaceful reunification, the PRC does not rule out the use of force. 353-354. The political environment is complicated by the potential for military conflict. 355-356, 357. Should events outlined in the PRC's anti-secession law occur, such as Taiwan declaring de jure independence, there is a substantial military presence on the Fujian coast as well as PRC sorties into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. It is 358, 359, 360. Participation in international events and organizations. See also Foreign Relations of Taiwan section, relation with international organizations, and Chinese Taipei. The ROC was a founding member of United Nations and held the seat of China on the Security Council and other UN bodies until 1971, when it was expelled by Resolution 2758 and replaced with the PRC, as the ROC now has neither official membership nor observer status in the organization. Since 1993, the ROC has petitioned the UN for entry, but its applications have not made it past committee stage 360 due to the One China policy. Most UN member states, including the United States, do not wish to discuss the issue of the ROC's political status for fear of souring diplomatic ties with the PRC. 363. The ROC government shifted its focus to organizations affiliated with the UN, as well as organizations outside the UN system. 364. The government sought to participate in the World Health Organization, who since 1997, 366 their efforts were rejected until 2009, when they participated as an observer under the name Chinese Taipei after reaching an agreement with Beijing. 368. In 2017, Taiwan again began to be excluded from the WHO, even in an observer capacity. 369. This exclusion caused a number of scandals during the COVID-19 outbreak. 371. A white symbol in shape of a 5-petal flower ringed by a blue and a red line. In its center stands a circular symbol depicting a white sun on a blue background. The 5 Olympic circles, blue, yellow, black, green, and red, stand below it. The flag used by Taiwan at the Olympic Games, where it competes as Chinese Taipei. The Nagoya Resolution in 1979, approved by the International Olympic Committee (IOC), provided a compromise for the ROC to use the name Chinese Taipei in international events where the PRC is also a party, such as the Olympic Games. 370 to 373. 374. Under the IOC Charter, ROC flags cannot be flown at any official Olympic venue or gathering. 375. The ROC also participates in the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum since 1991 and the World Trade Organization since 2002 under the names Chinese Taipei and Separate Customs Territory of Taiwan. Penghu, Kinmen, and Matsu, respectively. 376, 377. It was a founding member of the Asian Development Bank, but since China's ascension in 1986 has participated under the name Taipei, China. The ROC is able to participate as China in organizations in which the PRC does not participate, such as the World Organization of the Scout Movement. Due to its limited international recognition, the Republic of China has been a member of the Unrepresented Nations and People's Organization UNPO since the foundation of the organization in 1991. Represented by a government-funded organization, the Taiwan Foundation for Democracy (TFD), under the name Taiwan. 378. 379. The Republic of China Armed Forces takes its roots in the National Revolutionary Army, which was established by Sun Yat-sen in 1924 in Guangdong with the goal of reunifying China under the Kuomintang. When the People's Liberation Army won the Chinese Civil War, much of the National Revolutionary Army retreated to Taiwan along with the government. The 1947 Constitution of the ROC reformed it into the Republic of China Armed Forces, making it the National Army rather than the army of a political party. Units which surrendered and remained in mainland China were either disbanded or incorporated into the People's Liberation Army. From 1949 to the 1970s, the primary mission of the Taiwanese military was to retake mainland China through Project National Glory. As this mission has transitioned away from attack because the relative strength of the PRC has massively increased, the ROC military has begun to shift emphasis from the traditionally dominant army to the Air Force and Navy. Control of the armed forces has also passed into the hands of the civilian government. 380-381. The ROC began a series of force reduction plans since the 1990s to scale down its military from a level of 450,000 in 1997 to 380,000 in 2001. As of 2021, the total strength of the armed forces is capped at 215,000 with 90% manning ratio for volunteer military, 383. Conscription remains universal for qualified males reaching age 18, but as a part of the reduction effort, many are given the opportunity to fulfill their draft requirement through alternative service, 380 for 385. The military's reservists is around 2.5 million, including first-wave reservists numbered at 300,000 as of 2022. 386. Taiwan's defense spending as a percentage of its GDP fell below 3% in 1999 and had been trending downwards over the first 2 decades of the 21st century, 387-388. The ROC government pledged to raise the spending as high as proposed 3% of GDP, 389, 390, 391. In 2024, Taiwan proposed 2.45% of projected GDP in defense spending for the following year, 392. The Hong Kong exercise is an annual military exercise by the ROC Armed Forces in preparation for a possible attack from the PRC. The ROC and the United States signed the Sino-American Mutual Defense Treaty in 1954 and established the United States Taiwan Defense Command. About 30,000 U.S. troops were stationed in Taiwan until the United States established diplomatic relations with the PRC in 1979, 393. A significant amount of military hardware has been bought from the United States and continues to be legally guaranteed by the Taiwan Relations Act. France and the Netherlands have also sold military weapons and hardware to the ROC, but they almost entirely stopped in the 1990s under pressure of the PRC, 390 for 395. There is no guarantee in the Taiwan Relations Act or any other treaty that the United States will defend Taiwan, even in the event of invasion, 396. The Joint Declaration on Security between the U.S. and Japan signed in 1996 may imply that Japan would be involved in any response. However, Japan has refused to stipulate whether the area surrounding Japan mentioned in the pact includes Taiwan, 397. The Australia, New Zealand, United States Security Treaty A and the U.S. Treaty may mean that other U.S. allies, such as Australia, could be involved, 398-399. While this would risk damaging economic ties with China, 400, a conflict over Taiwan could lead to an economic blockade of China by a greater coalition, 401, 400 to 403, 400 for 405. LGBTQ rights. Main articles: LGBTQ rights in Taiwan and same-sex marriage in Taiwan. On the 24th of May 2017, the Constitutional Court ruled that then-current marriage laws had been violating the Constitution by denying same-sex couples the right to marry. The court ruled that if the Legislative Yuan did not pass adequate amendments to Taiwanese marriage laws within 2 years, same-sex marriages would automatically become lawful in Taiwan, 406 in a referendum question in 2018. However, voters expressed overwhelming opposition to same-sex marriage and supported the removal of content about homosexuality from primary school textbooks. According to the New York Times, the referendum questions were subject to a well-funded and highly organized campaign led by conservative Christians and other groups involving the use of misinformation, 321. Nevertheless, the vote against same-sex marriage does not affect the court ruling. And on the 17th of May 2019, Taiwan's parliament approved a bill legalizing same-sex marriage, making it the first country in Asia to do so, 407, 408, 409. Taiwan has an annual Pride event, Taiwan Pride. It currently holds the record for the largest LGBTQ gathering in East Asia, rivaling Tel Aviv Pride in Israel, 410. The event draws more than 200,000 people, 411. Economy. Main articles: Economy of Taiwan and Economic History of Taiwan. Photo of Taipei 101 Tower against a blue sky. Taipei 101 held the world record for the highest skyscraper from 2004 to 2010. The quick industrialization and rapid growth of Taiwan during the latter half of the 20th century has been called the Taiwan Miracle. Taiwan is one of the four Asian tigers alongside Hong Kong, South Korea, and Singapore. As of October 2022, Taiwan is the 21st largest economy in the world by nominal GDP, 412. Since 2001, agriculture constituted less than 2% of GDP, down from 32% in 1951. Unlike its neighbors, South Korea and Japan, the Taiwanese economy is dominated by small and medium-sized enterprises rather than the large business groups. 414 traditional labor-intensive industries are steadily being moved offshore and with more capital and technology-intensive industries replacing them. High-technology science parks have sprung up in Taiwan. Today, Taiwan has a dynamic, capitalist, export-driven economy with gradually decreasing state involvement in investment and foreign trade. In keeping with this trend, some large government-owned banks and industrial firms are being privatized. 415 exports have provided the primary impetus for industrialization. The trade surplus is substantial, and Taiwan remained one of the world's largest forex reserve holders. 416 Taiwan's total trade in 2022 reached 907 billion United States dollars. Both exports and imports for the year reached record levels, totaling 479.52 billion United States dollars and 427.60 billion United States dollars. Respectively, 417 China, United States, and Japan are Taiwan's three largest trading partners, accounting for over 40% of total trade. 418. Since the beginning of the 1990s, economic ties between Taiwan and China have been extensive. In 2002, China surpassed the United States to become Taiwan's largest export market for the first time. 419. China is also the most important target of outward foreign direct investment. 420. From 1991 to 2022, more than 200 billion United States dollars have been invested in China by Taiwanese companies. 421. China hosts around 4,200 Taiwanese enterprises and over 240,000 Taiwanese work in China. 420 to 423. Although the economy of Taiwan benefits from this situation, some have expressed the view that the island has become increasingly dependent on the mainland Chinese economy. 424. Others argue that close economic ties between Taiwan and mainland China would make any military intervention by the PLA against Taiwan very costly and therefore less probable. 425. TSMC Fab 5 located in Hsinchu Science Park. Since the 1980s, a number of Taiwan-based technology firms have expanded their reach around the world. 426. Taiwan is a key player in the supply chain for advanced chips. Taiwan's rise in the key semiconductor industry was largely attributed to Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Co., TSMC, and United Microelectronic Corporation, UMC. 427. TSMC was founded the 21st of February 1987, and as of December 2021, its market capitalization equated to roughly 90% of Taiwan's GDP. 428. The company is the 9th largest in the world by market capitalization. 429, as well as the world's biggest semiconductor manufacturing company, surpassing Intel and Samsung. 430. UMC, another major company in Taiwan's high-tech exports and global semiconductors, competes with the American Global Foundries and others for less advanced semiconductor processes and for silicon wafers. 431. Other well-known international technology companies based in Taiwan include personal computer manufacturers Acer Inc. and Asus, as well as Foxconn, an electronics contract manufacturer. 432. Taiwan is a major manufacturer of bicycles and their component parts and accounts for around 40% of all bikes imported to Europe. French newspaper Le Monde Diplomatique alleged that in the past several decades, the industry has relied on exploitative migrant labor practices to boost its productivity. Workers recruited from poorer neighboring countries face debt bondage, passport retention, wage withholding, and substandard living conditions, as well as threats and intimidation from employers. Taiwan is one of the few countries where labor brokers are permitted to charge high recruitment fees to migrant workers. Recent reporting on these practices has led to promises of reform from some manufacturers. 433. In response to the allegations, the Taiwanese Trade Association stated that all bicycle manufacturers complied with the labor laws and proactively worked to improve working conditions. 434. The Ministry of Transportation and Communications of Taiwan is the cabinet-level governing body of the transport network in Taiwan. Civilian transport in Taiwan is characterized by extensive use of scooters. In March 2019, 13.86 million were registered, twice that of cars. 435 both highways and railways are concentrated near the coasts, where the majority of the population resides, with 1,619 kilometers 1,006 miles of motorway. Railways in Taiwan are primarily used for passenger services, with Taiwan Railways Administration operating a circular route around the island, and Taiwan High-Speed Rail THS are running high-speed services on the west coast. Urban transit systems include Taipei Metro, Kaohsiung Metro, Taoyuan Metro, New Taipei Metro, and Taichung MRT. Major airports include Taiwan Taoyuan, Kaohsiung, Taipei Songshan, and Taichung. There are currently 7 Taiwanese passenger airlines, with the largest being China Airlines and Eva Air. There are 7 international seaports: Keelung, Taipei, Suao, Taichung, Kaohsiung, Anping, and Hualien. 436. The port of Kaohsiung handled the largest volume of cargo in Taiwan, with about 440 million shipping tons, which accounted for 58.6% of Taiwan's total throughput in 2021. 437. The shipping tonnage followed by Taichung 18.6%, Taipei 12%, and Keelung 8.7%. Demographics. Main article. Demographics of Taiwan. Population density map of Taiwan residents per square kilometer. Taiwan has a population of about 23.4 million, 438, most of whom are on the island of Taiwan. The remainder live on the outlying islands of Penghu 101,758, Kinmen 127,723, and Matsu 12,506, 439. Largest cities and counties. Main article, list of cities in Taiwan. The figures below are the March 2019 estimates for the 20 most populous administrative divisions. A different ranking exists when considering the total metropolitan area populations. In such rankings, the Taipei-Keelung metro area is by far the largest agglomeration. The figures reflect the number of household registrations in each city, which may differ from the number of actual residents. Main articles: Taiwanese people, Han Taiwanese, Han Chinese, Taiwanese indigenous peoples, and Plains indigenous peoples. The ROC government reports that 95% of the population is ethnically Han Chinese, 440. There are also 2.5% indigenous Austronesian peoples and 2.5% new immigrants primarily from China and Southeast Asia, 12. Most Han Taiwanese are descended from the Haklo people, native to the coastal regions of southern Fujian, and the Hakka people, native to eastern Guangdong. Haklo and Hakka migrants arrived in large numbers during the 17th and 18th century. Descendants of Haklo now compose approximately 70% of Taiwan's population. 14 descendants of Hakka make up about 15% of the population. Another minority group, called Weishengrun, comprises those who arrived from China during the 1940s or are descended from them. 441 genetic studies indicate that the Han people in Taiwan are closer to Southern Chinese compared to Northern Chinese and, similar to several other groups of Han Chinese, had mixed with island Southeast Asians, likely before their migration to Taiwan. 442 nonetheless. They can be genetically distinguished from the indigenous minority despite low-level admixture. In addition, there is also evidence of genetic influence from groups like Western Indonesians and mainland Southeast Asians, especially Kin Vietnamese. 444. Taiwanese indigenous peoples number about 584,000, and the government recognizes 16 groups. 445. The Ami, Atayal, Bunan, Kanakanavu, Kavalan, Paiwan, Puyuma, Rukai, Saziat, Saroa, Sakizaya, Sadiq, Thao, Truku and Sil live mostly in the eastern half of the island, while the Yami inhabit Orchid Island, 446-447. The Republic of China does not have any legally designated official language. Mandarin is the primary language used in business and education, and is spoken by the vast majority of the population. Traditional Chinese is used as the writing system, 448. Around 70% of Taiwan's population belong to the Haklo ethnic group and are native speakers of Taiwanese Hokkien, 449. The Hakka group, comprising some 14 to 18% of the population, speak Hakka. Although Mandarin is the language of instruction in schools and dominates television and radio, non-Mandarin Chinese varieties have undergone a revival in public life in Taiwan, particularly since restrictions on their use were lifted in the 1990s, 448. Formosan languages are spoken primarily by the indigenous peoples of Taiwan. They do not belong to the Chinese or Sino-Tibetan language family, but to the Austronesian language family, and are written in the Latin alphabet, 450. Their use among Aboriginal minority groups has been in decline as usage of Mandarin has risen, 448. Of the 14 extant languages, 5 are considered moribund, 451. Since the May 4th movement, written vernacular Chinese had replaced classical Chinese and emerged as the mainstream written Chinese in the Republic of China. Classical Chinese continued to be widely used in government documents until reforms in the 1970s to shift the written style to a more integrated vernacular Chinese and classical Chinese style. 450 to 453 on the 1st of January 2005. The Executive Yuan also changed its long-standing convention on the direction of writing in official documents from vertical to horizontal. Standalone classical Chinese is occasionally used in formal or ceremonial occasions, such as religious or cultural rites. The national anthem of the Republic of China, for example, is in classical Chinese. Most official government, legal, and judiciary documents, as well as courts' rulings, use a combined vernacular Chinese and classical Chinese style, 454. As many legal documents are still written in classical Chinese, which is not easily understood by the general public, a group of Taiwanese have launched a legal vernacular movement, helping to bring more vernacular Chinese into the legal writings of the Republic of China. 455. Taiwan is officially multilingual. A national language in Taiwan is legally defined as a natural language used by an original people group of Taiwan and the Taiwan Sign Language. 9. The Constitution of the Republic of China protects people's freedom of religion and the practices of belief. 456-457 The government respects freedom of religion. And Taiwan scores highly on the International IDAS Global State of Democracy Indices for Religious Freedom. 458. In 2005, the census reported that the 5 largest religious groups were Buddhism, Taoism, Yiguandao, Protestantism, and Roman Catholicism. 459. According to Pew Research, the religious composition of Taiwan in 2023-13 was 28% Buddhist, 24% Taoist, 7% Christian, 5% combination of religions, 4% local, indigenous, 27% no religion, and 4% others. Taiwanese Aborigines comprise a notable subgroup among professing Christians, 460. There has been a small Muslim community of Hui people since the 17th century, 461. Confucianism serves as the foundation of both Chinese and Taiwanese culture. The majority of Taiwanese people usually combine the secular moral teachings of Confucianism with whatever religions they are affiliated with. As of 2019, there were 15,175 religious buildings in Taiwan, approximately 1 place of worship per 1,572 residents. 12,279 temples were dedicated to Taoism and Buddhism. There were 9,684 Taoist temples, 2,317 Buddhist temples, 462 and 2,845 Christian churches, 462. On average, there is one temple or church or religious building for every square kilometer. The density of religions and religious buildings in Taiwan is among the highest in the world, 464. A significant percentage of the population is non-religious. Taiwan's lack of state-sanctioned discrimination and generally high regard for freedom of religion or belief earned it a joint #1 ranking in the 2018 Freedom of Thought Report, 465. On the other hand, the Indonesian migrant worker community in Taiwan, estimated to total 258,084 people, has experienced religious restrictions by local employers or the government, 468. Taiwan is well known for adhering to the Confucian paradigm of valuing education as a means to improve one's socioeconomic position in society. 471 heavy investment and a cultural valuing of education has made the resource-poor nation to be consistently ranked to the top of global education rankings. Taiwan is one of the top-performing countries in reading literacy, mathematics, and sciences. In 2015, Taiwanese students achieved one of the world's best results in mathematics, science, and literacy, as tested by the Program for International Student Assessment (PISA), with the average student scoring 519 compared with the OECD average of 493, placing it 7th in the world, 470 to 474. The Taiwanese education system has been praised for its comparatively high test results and its major role in promoting Taiwan's economic development while creating one of the world's most highly educated workforces. 476. Taiwan has also been praised for its high university entrance rate, where the university acceptance rate has increased from around 20% before the 1980s to 49% in 1996 and over 95% since 2008. Among the highest in Asia, 477, 478, 479. The nation's high university entrance rate has created a highly skilled workforce, making Taiwan one of the most highly educated countries in the world, with 68.5% of Taiwanese high school students going on to attend university. 480. Taiwan has a high percentage of its citizens holding a tertiary education degree, where 45% of Taiwanese aged 25 to 64 hold a bachelor's degree or higher, compared with the average of 33% among member countries of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD). 479. 481. On the other hand, the education system has been criticized for placing excessive pressure on students while eschewing creativity and producing an excess supply of overeducated university graduates. Many graduates consequently face unemployment or underemployment due to a lack of graduate-level jobs. 480 to 471. Taiwan's universities have also been under criticism for not being able to fully meet the requirements and demands of Taiwan's 21st century fast-moving labor market, citing a skills mismatch among a large number of self-assessed, overeducated graduates who do not fit the demands of the modern Taiwanese labor market. 483. The Taiwanese government has been criticized for failing to adequately address this discrepancy in labor supply and demand. 477. 484. As the Taiwanese economy is largely science and technology-based, the labor market demands people who have achieved some form of higher education, particularly related to science and engineering, to gain a competitive edge when searching for employment. Although current Taiwanese law mandates only 9 years of schooling, 95% of junior high graduates go on to attend a senior vocational high school, university, junior college, trade school, or other higher education institution. 480. 485. Many Taiwanese students attend cram schools, or buksaban, to improve skills and knowledge on problem solving against exams. 486. 487. Since Made in China 2025 was announced in 2015, aggressive campaigns to recruit Taiwanese chip industry talent to support its mandates resulted in the loss of more than 3,000 chip engineers to mainland China. 488. And raised concerns of a brain drain in Taiwan. 400. The current healthcare system, known as National Health Insurance (NHI), was instituted in 1995. NHI is a single-payer compulsory social insurance plan that centralizes the disbursement of healthcare funds. The system promises equal access to healthcare for all citizens, and the population coverage had reached 99% by the end of 2004. 492 NHI is mainly financed through premiums, which are based on the payroll tax, and is supplemented with out-of-pocket copayments and direct government funding. 493 490 for 495 low-income families. Veterans, centenarians, children under 3, and catastrophic diseases are exempt from copayments. Copays are reduced for disabled and low-income households maintain 100% premium coverage. Early in the program, the payment system was predominantly fee-for-service. Most health providers operate in the private sector and form a competitive market on the health delivery side. However, many healthcare providers took advantage of this system by offering unnecessary services. In the face of increasing loss and the need for cost containment, NHI changed the payment system from fee-for-service to a global budget, a kind of prospective payment system, in 2002. The implementation of universal healthcare created fewer health disparities for lower-income citizens in Taiwan. According to a recently published survey, out of 3,360 patients surveyed at a randomly chosen hospital, 75.1% of the patients said they are very satisfied with the hospital service. 20.5% said they are okay with the service. Only 4.4% of the patients said they are either not satisfied or very not satisfied with the service or care provided. 496. The Taiwanese Disease Control Authority is the Taiwan Centers for Disease Control (CDC). During the SARS outbreak in March 2003, there were 347 confirmed cases. During the outbreak, the CDC and local governments set up monitoring stations throughout public transportation, recreational sites, and other public areas. With full containment in July 2003, there has not been a case of SARS since. 497. Owing to the lessons from SARS, a National Health Command Center (FR) was established in 2004, which includes the Central Epidemic Command Center (CECC). The CECC has played a central role in Taiwan's approach to epidemics, including COVID-19. In 2019, the infant mortality rate was 4.2 deaths per 1,000 live births, with 20 physicians and 71 hospital beds per 10,000 people. 499 life expectancy at birth in 2020 is 77.5 years and 83.9 years for males and females, respectively. 500. Culture. Main articles: Culture of Taiwan, Cultural History of Taiwan, and Chinese Cultural Renaissance. See also Taiwanese Wave, Amos people of Taiwan performing a traditional dance. The cultures of Taiwan are a hybrid blend from various sources, incorporating elements of the majority traditional Chinese culture, Aboriginal cultures, Japanese cultural influence, traditional Confucianist beliefs, and increasingly Western values. During the martial law period, the Kuomintang promoted an official traditional Chinese culture over Taiwan in order to emphasize that the Republic of China represents the true orthodoxy to Chinese culture as opposed to Communist China. 501. The government launched what's known as the Chinese Cultural Renaissance movement in Taiwan in opposition to the cultural destructions caused by the Chinese Communist Party during the Cultural Revolution. The General Assembly of Chinese Culture was established to help promote Chinese culture in Taiwan and overseas. It was Kuomintang's first structured plan for cultural development on Taiwan. The Chinese Cultural Renaissance movement in Taiwan had led to some aspects of Chinese culture being better preserved there than in mainland China, for example, the continued use of traditional Chinese. The influence of Confucianism can be found in the behavior of Taiwanese people, known for their friendliness and politeness. 502. The National Palace Museum is an institute dedicated to the organization, care, and display of ancient Chinese artifacts and works of art. The lifting of martial law ushered a period of democratization whereby freedom of speech and expression led to a flourishing Taiwanese literature and mass media in Taiwan. The Taiwanese Constitution protects speech, teaching, writing, and publication. 503 in 2022. The Economist Intelligence Unit's Democracy Index ranked Taiwan as having the second highest democracy score in Asia and Australasia. 500 for Freedom House has ranked Taiwan the second freest place in Asia. 506 while Civicus rated Taiwan and New Zealand as the only open countries in the Asia Pacific. 508. In the aftermath of China gaining control of Hong Kong and restricting freedom of speech and protest, 36,789 Hong Kong residents moved to Taiwan from 2019 to 2022, an average of about 9,000 immigrants per year. In 2018, Taiwan only had 4,000 Hong Kong immigrants, 509. Reflecting the continuing controversy surrounding the political status of Taiwan, politics continues to play a role in the conception and development of Taiwanese cultural identity, especially in its relationship to Chinese culture. 510. In recent years, the concept of Taiwanese multiculturalism has been proposed as a relatively apolitical alternative view, which has allowed for the inclusion of mainlanders and other minority groups into the continuing redefinition of Taiwanese culture as collectively held systems of meaning and customary patterns of thought and behavior shared by the people of Taiwan. 511 Identity politics. Along with the over 100 years of political separation from mainland China, has led to distinct traditions in many areas, including cuisine and music. Acclaimed classical musicians include violinist Cho Lianglin, pianist Qing Yanhu, and the Lincoln Center Chamber Music Society artist-director Wu Han. Other musicians include Teresa Tang, Jay Shu, and groups such as Mayday and heavy metal band Sonic, led by singer Freddie Limit, which has been referred to as the Black Sabbath of Asia. 513. Taiwanese films have won various international awards at film festivals around the world. Andy Lee, a Taiwanese director, has directed critically acclaimed films such as Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, Sense and Sensibility, Brokeback Mountain, Life of Pi, and Lust, Caution. Other famous Taiwanese directors include Tsai Ming-liang, Edward Yang, and Ho Xiaoxian. Taiwan has hosted the Golden Horse Film Festival and Awards since 1962. The National Palace Museum houses more than 650,000 pieces of Chinese bronze, jade, calligraphy, painting, and porcelain and is considered one of the greatest collections of Chinese art and objects in the world. 514. Popular culture. Karaoke is extremely popular in Taiwan, where it is known as KTV. 515 KTV businesses operate in a hotel-like style, renting out small rooms and ballrooms according to the number of guests. Many KTV establishments partner with restaurants and buffets to form all-encompassing and elaborate evening affairs. Tour buses that travel around Taiwan have several TVS, primarily for singing karaoke. Taiwan has a high density of 24-hour convenience stores, which provide services on behalf of financial institutions or government agencies, such as collection of parking fees, utility bills, traffic fines, and credit card payments. 516 chains such as Family Mart provide clothing laundry services in select stores. 517 and tickets for TRA and THS are available at 7-Eleven, Family Mart, High Life, and OKZH. 519. Cuisine. Main article. Taiwanese cuisine. Taiwanese culinary history is murky and is intricately tied to patterns of migration and colonization. Local and international Taiwanese cuisine, including its history, is a politically contentious topic. Famous Taiwanese dishes include Taiwanese beef noodle soup, gyulbao, zongzi, kongba png, Taiwanese fried chicken, oyster vermicelli, sanbeiji, and ayu jelly. 520. Bubble tea, created in Taiwan in the 1980s, has now become popular globally. 521. In 2014, The Guardian called Taiwanese night markets the best street food markets in the world. 522. The Michelin Guide began reviewing restaurants in Taiwan in 2018. 523. Sports. Main article. Sport in Taiwan. See also, list of sporting events in Taiwan. The Chinese Professional Baseball League CPBL is the top-tier professional baseball league in Taiwan. Baseball is commonly considered Taiwan's national sport and is a popular spectator sport. 524. The men's team won medals across all levels of baseball in 2022, including the U12, U15, U18, U23, and Baseball 5 competitions, the only team to do so in baseball history. 525. The results made Taiwan's national baseball team one of the top-ranked teams in the WBSC World Rankings. Professional baseball in Taiwan started with the founding of the Chinese Professional Baseball League CPBL in 1989. 526 as of 2024. The CPBL has 6 teams, with an average attendance of over 7,000 per game. 528 some elite players signed with overseas professional teams in the Major League Baseball (MLB) or the Nippon Professional Baseball (NPB). There have been 17 Taiwanese MLB players as of the 2024 MLB season, including former pitchers Chen-Ming Wang and Wei-Yin Chen. As for variations of baseball, Taiwan also has a strong women's softball team. Its women's national softball team won a bronze medal at the 2022 World Games. 529. Basketball is Taiwan's other major sport. 530. The P-League Plus and Taiwan Professional Basketball League are the country's 2 professional basketball leagues. 531. A semi-professional Super Basketball League (SBL) has also been in play since 2003. 532. Other team sports include volleyball and football. Taiwan is also a major competitor in korfball. 533. Taiwan participates in international sporting organizations and events under the name of Chinese Taipei. Taiwan has hosted several multi-sport events in the past, including the 2009 World Games in Kaohsiung and the 2009 Summer Deaflympics and 2017 Summer Universiade in Taipei. 534. Taipei and New Taipei City will host the 2025 Summer World Masters Games. 535. Hualien will host the 2026 International Children's Games. 536. Other major recurring events held by Taiwan include: Taekwondo was introduced to Taiwan in 1966 for military training and has become a mature and successful combat sport in Taiwan. 537. The first 2 Olympic gold medals won by Taiwanese athletes belong to the sport. In the 2004 Olympics, Chen Shexin and Xu Miyan won gold medals in the women's flyweight event and the men's flyweight event, respectively. Subsequent Taekwondo competitors have strengthened Taiwan's Taekwondo culture. There are many outstanding Taiwanese players at other individual sports, such as badminton, tennis, table tennis, and golf. Taiwan's strength in badminton is demonstrated by Tai Tsuying, who spent most weeks as World No. 1 women's singles player in BWF World Ranking, and her compatriots in the BWF World Tour. 538. 539. Taiwan also has a long history of strong international presence in table tennis. 6-time Olympian Chuangzi Qiyuan made the most appearances at the Olympic Games among Taiwanese athletes. 540. Yanni Tseng is the youngest golf player ever, male or female, to win 5 major championships and was ranked number 1 in the Women's World Golf Rankings for 109 consecutive weeks from 2011 to 2013. 541. 540 to 543. In tennis, Shea Suwei is the country's most successful female tennis player. 540 for 545. Calendar, main article, Republic of China calendar. See also, Chinese calendar and public holidays in Taiwan. The standard Gregorian calendar is used for most purposes. The year is often denoted by the Minggu era system, which starts in 1912, the year the ROC was founded. 2024 is year 113 Minggu 113. The East Asian date format is used in Chinese. 546. Prior to standardization in 1929, the Chinese calendar was officially used. It is a lunisolar calendar system which remains in use for traditional festivals such as the Lunar New Year, the Lantern Festival, and the Dragon Boat Festival. 547.